is the Seahawkers podcast, episode 428. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me is my good buddy and Montana Seahawker, Adam Emmert.
You know, you ask people, Brandon, what their favorite number is, most people have an answer. If you ask people what their favorite letter is, most people wouldn't, but I do, and it's dub. It's a W. W is my favorite letter. We got the dub over the Titans. That feels damn good. Controlling our own destiny, going down the stretch here to make the playoffs. Pretty cool. I know it was a little bit of a rough game, but you got to be excited as a Hawks fan right now, man. You're right in the thick of it.
They are. And was there any doubt? I mean, it was an East Coast game. They got the early start. Sure, it was a little sluggish out of the gates, but second half, they scored on all their possessions. Not a lot of possessions, but they scored on all of them. And like you said, got the dub. So like in our minds, I know we all think, okay, the Titans are a 5-win team. They should be beaten soundly. But I feel like we should know better by now, even though sometimes we don't.
100%. Number one, a 5-win team is not that different from a 7-win team. So let's not get that twisted there. It's not like, you know, we're one of the top tier teams in the NFL right now, like the Ravens or something like that. But you do think that, you know, the Titans have struggled all year. They've got backup quarterback. You should throttle them, but they always play us tough. And as Pete Carroll said on his coach's show, that these games are tough. They're all NFL teams with NFL players, and they're all fighting for jobs, and they're all tough. So cherish every victory. It was frustrating in the first half, no doubt about it, particularly offensively. But like you said, not many possessions to get it rolling. This game went by in a blink. It was over like 10 minutes after it started, seemingly.
A big part of that, though, was that inability to stop the run game for the Titans. And maybe, I guess we kind of hinted at it, too, going into this game, that Vrabel and Carroll are both kind of those old school type coaches that, you know, they're content with limiting the number of possessions. You know, it's not like the Chip Kelly style offense to where you want your offense out there on the field and you want to just compile possessions. It's more of the opposite, limiting possessions and then being okay with trying to put it away in the end. And so in that sense, it was a very Pete Carroll type football game. I know we do have an email coming up. I kind of want to get down to what the Pete Carroll style is, but Pete, you talk about the coach's show and him talking with Mike Salk. He likes winning and playing in these types of games. And it's funny. This is one of the only seasons where I remember Pete Carroll talking about and reflecting on previous games and talking about, it went on for weeks to where he reflected back on the loss to the Rams in the opening week of the season because they seemed so prepared and with it for the first half and then lost it in the second half. And then now he's kind of stewing on that inability then to get the win against Dallas and having the team in the position to go and kind of win out in a similar fashion that they've won these past two games.
With all due respect to Coach Carroll, the second loss to the Rams is the one that makes me stew more than about anything. A missed field goal at the end. Was it a hard field goal? Yes. Could you make it? Yes. That one hurts more than the Dallas game just because it's a division game and just catfish Rams.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Pete definitely being a little more nostalgic, as a whole, and he gives a lot less catfish about what the outside thinks this year, I think, than maybe even in years past, because Salk brings up to him, hey man, you guys are something like, top 3 in the league throwing outside the numbers. And Pete Carroll's response was, so?
Yeah. So
like what? Totally defensive. So what of it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And it was like, well, what of it? That means that you're not balanced in the way that you're using the field. And he went on.
That's not the way that Salk put it, though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how did he put it then? Like, what am I?
Well,
what am
I felt like Salk had the opportunity then to say, why not use the entire field or kind of follow it up that way?
Oh, yeah.
He more was trying to, and I can understand that's a difference in techniques. He was trying to then draw out of Pete what the reason might be and not saying explicitly, why not go to the middle of the field? He was trying to lead Pete down that path of just even trying to understand why it is that the offense is ranked. And he said that they're ranked at the top of the league. They go toward the sideline more than any other team in the league. And so I think it was him just trying to get an understanding, or at least that's how he put it as an interview, because he wants to try and draw it out of Pete to see if he can get Pete to just give him an answer as to why it might be that way, whether it be trying to avoid turnovers or them being stronger at throwing those types of routes. I think he just was trying to fish for an answer too.
Yeah. And I understand the approach, especially when you need to keep a professional working relationship with the interview subject that you see week in, week out, and is a big part of everything you do there at the radio station. I get that the Seahawks are a big deal and you got to keep those relationships. But Mike Salka spent too much time in Seattle because that was the most passive aggressive way of going after. Why the hell do you not just, throw a bunch of freaking in-breaking routes? Like, why do you limit yourself to just these areas? And Pete's answer was basically, well, we've got great receivers on the outside and they work well on the outside. So we throw there. And in all of our plays, the interior stuff just doesn't present itself. Everybody is covering that up and leaving us the outside as the options. BS.
Yeah, I agree. Because you go back and watch the film, they don't run routes over the middle.
That's exactly it. It's not that the opportunities don't present themselves as the way that Pete puts it. It's that you don't give yourself the opportunity to begin with. And then when the offense bogs down trying to throw to the outside, what does that tell you? It tells you that maybe, just maybe, there's another part of the field that is lesser defended because of teams playing to your extreme tendency. And that was infuriating to listen to that part of Pete's answer to that question. And it's something that has to change. I don't understand why you let them dictate to you whether or not you can run the football, whether or not you can throw it over the middle, whether or not all of these things that Pete says, well, we just can't get to our stuff. It's not the opportunities that present itself. BS. Create your opportunities.
And that's why I don't think I buy that answer. I think Pete is answering in that way for a reason. And I think maybe it could be as simple as one of those, always protect the team type reasons. Yeah. But because he's aware of the statistics, whenever Salk or any of these interviewers bring up the statistics to him, he talks about, oh yeah, we have, because I think they even brought up, was it the same interview where they brought up the PFF numbers? And Pete's like, oh yeah, we have all those numbers. So it's not that they don't understand or see the way things are playing out. I think there's a reason for doing what they're doing, and it could be turnovers. It could be, I'm trying to think of what
according to Pete, they are not avoiding the middle of the field. They are not actively avoiding the middle of the field. That's what Pete basically came out and said. And I don't buy it. I don't buy it because the tape don't lie. And I get Pete has to say what he has to say for in terms of the media and protecting the team and protecting the players and getting you through a season. I get all that. But man, I mean, Pete does know way more about football than you and I ever will combined, probably in just his pinky. And that's cool and all. But also too, like, people of our ilk, we can look at basic things like this and go, that can't work long term. That's a sustainability problem. That's a problem in terms of consistency for the offense. Like, you don't have to be a football savant to understand that only working a small part of the field for your offense when you're not running the ball either with any consistency. So you're a pass heavy team that then limits yourself to a certain part of the field in your pass heavy offense. That feels completely screwed up to me.
So the other reason that I think that it may work this way is then if they lean on these tendencies throughout most of the game, it is in those final 2-minute drive type situations that we do start to see them use all the field. We see most of the throws over the middle of the field come in those 2-minute drive situations. So is that a strategic type thing? And so the greater part that we've just talked about, to where it seems like inconceivable why you wouldn't do that. Like, is there that more second level strategic approach of, well, then we use it when it benefits us the most in these drive down the field 2-minute type situations. And you can see that these last couple of weeks, that's when it's played out and worked.
You can't bust that out just like, I don't know, a quarter earlier and make life easier on yourself. I understand, Pete, and I'm not calling for Pete's job. I haven't changed my mind. I love Pete Carroll. I love winning. I love being consistent, all that stuff. But that doesn't mean that there aren't things that Coach Carroll does that doesn't, I mean, they drive me crazy. And this is one of them. You know, the whole, well, you can't win it in the first, second, third quarter. Well, you kind of can. I mean, honestly, you can. And you bury a team like the Steelers did to the Bengals last week, and they won that thing by the second quarter. So,
when you're up, 33-7 at the end of the first half, you've kind of got the game in the bag.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can win the games then as well, and everybody would feel a lot better about it. Now, with that said, the style that Pete likes to play, and you alluded to it, keep it close, win it in the fourth, all that stuff, practice the clutchiness things, that style over time, you will be in and win more football games than the more boom or bust teams. It is a more consistent way of playing because you're not relying on big plays and big chunks and all that stuff. You're keeping it to a close game to where you just have to out-execute the other team one more drive than they do. And you really practice that, which they alluded to in the interview as well. You can't argue with the results. I mean, he's the winningest coach in all of Seahawks history. Come on. It works.
And those are the types of answers that if Pete were to say, well, the thing is we go to the sidelines throughout the game because we feel that's our best opportunity to limit turnovers, and then we can keep it close when we get to the fourth quarter or we get in 2-minute situations, then that's when we're going to open up the playbook and not avoid the middle of the field, because then that's the best way to make those long drives. And like, that may be the answer. And he would never say that because that's a strategic thing that he would not want to give up to in an interview with a Seattle radio host.
I mean, at this point, like, is this a state secret? I mean, come on. If you're any of the opposing head coaches, like, you know exactly how Pete Carroll wants to play ball, and Vrabel knew it. And they both played the same exact game, which was try to run the ball as much as you can. Don't let your quarterback do something stupid. Win it in the fourth quarter. And there were no turnovers in the game. And they both played the same exact brand of ball. And Pete's team, slightly more talented, was able to pull it out. And that was the difference in the game.
I do think that Pete has a brand of football that he wants to play. I don't think that this necessarily, maybe we'll get to it, but it still feels off for me to where I'm seeing the way that the Seahawks want to, like, or Pete Carroll would want to play football. And maybe they can get there. Maybe they can't. Maybe they still need a few more personnel to be able to fully get back to, I think, the way Pete Carroll would prefer to play. But yeah, maybe it's shifted too. And because we've seen that even though they have dudes to run the football, it doesn't seem, it seems like they've gone more away from the first down runs and shifted more to first down passes.
Exclusively on second down.
Yeah.
Like all the time, to the point to where everybody knows it. Look, the part of this football team and the way their football is made up right now that's not fitting Pete's philosophy is defensively.
That too.
And you could hear him lament about that in that coach's interview, because once again, against this Titans team, they gave up, 160 odd some yards on the ground. And after getting jellied by the Eagles, after getting jellied by the Niners, after getting jellied, well, they didn't really get jellied by the Cowboys, but, got jellied by the Niners again.
Mm-hmm.
This is not Pete Carroll football. And you heard him talking about it and being like, look, all right, we just had to focus more on not giving up the explosives, live with getting it crammed down our throats, and giving up these long, long drives. And that's the part of this football team that I think is not how Pete wants to play football.
And that's the thing that it maybe is a little bit surprising them when they play a team that you feel like they should be able to impose their will on, and they don't. And even though it was a win, it feels like a missed opportunity, I suppose, in that sense against the Titans.
This team imposes their will for about 1 to 2 quarters a game. And that's it, max. It's the consistency factor that is the problem with this football team right now. It's not that their ceiling isn't high enough to win big. It's that they can't get their floor high enough to consistently win big. And that's where the struggle is right now. And I have to constantly remind myself, and I found myself doing it this week, being so frustrated with that and go, oh, we're one of the 5 youngest teams in the league.
Yeah.
And one of the marks of a young football team that's trying to figure it out is inconsistency. That is a big part of it. And we're suffering the consequences of that right now in this year 2 of a rebuild. And you're still in the playoff mix and doing good things in an off season away from really making some noise and getting more consistent with some more experience being built up by the younger players along the way.
That's a good point, because that's an easy thing to forget about the youth of this team. When you have Geno Smith at quarterback, when you have Bobby Wagner and Quandre Diggs on one side of the defense, Leonard Williams, who's in his 30s too, that you have, quite a few guys that are 30 plus, but then everybody else, young guys for the most part. So yeah, you go to the average age and it is a significantly younger team than most teams in the NFL. It's something that I know I forget.
All right, here are some of the youngest teams in the NFL. Packers are first at 25 years old average. Rams are second, 25.3. Bengals are third at 25.4. Colts are fourth at 25.4. Seahawks are fifth at 25.5. Chargers sixth at 25.5. Chiefs at 25.5. And you look down the list of those teams, and even the Chiefs this year have the struggles in comparison to years past as they've gotten younger and try to make another run with a different core. I mean, short of obviously Mahomes and Kelsey and Jones, right, on defense. But the Colts are in strugglesville as they do their rebuild. The Rams, they're doing basically the same thing that we're doing right now. A couple big-time veterans and then a bunch of young pups, and you see what you get, about the same exact result. Packers, same exact boat. The only team out of those in the youngest teams is having sustained success, and this year, obviously, it's been skewed by the Joe Burrow injury, is the Bengals. So there's a trend here that shows you that even great coaches with some star players, if overall your team is very young, you're going to have some struggles in the consistency.
At what point I wonder when you start to see the benefits of playing those young players? And maybe it just depends on the players that you have, obviously, yes, that can grow in and actually, show some growth then in the coming years that leads you to become then a consistently performing team throughout the regular season. Can that kick in? Will it kick in?
Absolutely it will. And the only limiting factor as to how far you can take it will be what the eventual ceiling of a lot of these young players actually ends up being. And that's the part that none of us know. We have ideas. We all think that all of our young dudes are going to be stars and awesome and all that. It's not always the case. And sometimes that's because the player doesn't hold up his end of the bargain. Sometimes it's because the team doesn't hold up their end of the bargain for the player. And there's a lot that goes into all of that. But I think somebody like Reek, for example, I think this has been such an incredibly beneficial year for him. I know the numbers are down. I know he got de facto benched and nobody on the team wants to talk about it, but he had the big hit at the end of the game to seal the game, almost had a pick. He had his highest pass coverage grade this last week against the Titans. And going through the struggles of this year in his little sophomore slump that he's having here, that's what breeds success in the future. And you find that inner grit a little bit more. And I think that's just one example of many of the young players that are getting some adversity thrown at them and some experience thrown at them so that they can then grow.
So you bring up Reek, and one of the things, I'm trying to think of the exact number that it was, but despite him kind of playing through what appear to be struggles, he was still among the top corners in the league in terms of his ability to coverage, or as far as I think it was limiting the amount of yards. I forget what the exact statistic was, but it was just the fact that he was up there still among the top cornerbacks, despite appearing to struggle. And I think most of the struggles that we recognize are primarily in the run game anyway, but that he's still, holding up his end when it comes to coverage.
Absolutely. What has it been as good as last year? Well, no, because the interception numbers aren't there. But again, that's a position where those numbers are volatile. I don't care if you're Deion Sanders, you're not going to pick off 10 balls a year. Like some years they won't even test you, and you'll get
Sherman ran into that issue, right?
Yeah. So there's volatility in those numbers of passes defended and all that stuff, interceptions. But when I say little slump for Reek, like it doesn't look quite as good as it did last year, but also too, he's working through some stuff. Kid was raw, 6th round pick for a reason. Like it's going to take some time, and these guys are starting to gel a little bit here. And I like the way that it's looking in terms of even in this stretch of all these tough games that we had, really only the Niners took us to the woodshed the one time. Otherwise, they were pretty much in every single game going down the stretch there in that 5-game stretch. And now that they're getting against more equal opponents at this point, they're showing that, okay, we're better than that, but we're not quite as good as them. And they're learning how to win in these tight games that Pete Carroll prefers to play. And I think that is something that will show dividends next year. And I know people don't want to hear that. They want to win the Super Bowl this year and all that stuff. But, as human beings, we can't have everything that we want exactly when we want every time we want it. And a little patience is sometimes required.
But I want my Lombardi trophy now, Adam.
It's my money, and I want it now. What is that, like J.G. Whitworth or whatever it was?
I was trying to go with the Veruca Salt of Willy Wonka. Where
that worked too?
Yeah, both in the same neighborhood. I want it now. Dang it.
Yeah. Is it not? I mean, I was pissed throughout the game last week. Don't get me wrong. Frustrated. Yeah. No doubt about it in the moment. But you have to get a little further away from just the weekly results to understand where this team is going, because I think there's the regime changers, the Rumsfelds, as we called them last week, or as I called them. I'm not going to lump you into that. I think they feel that we're just mired in mediocrity, where I see a step up in competition level this year and having similar, if not better results. They still have the opportunity to win 10 games this year, which is a game more than last year. And then if they win a playoff game, does that change everybody's feelings again? There's a lot going down the stretch here that I think will help define how people feel going forward. But I don't think we're mired in mediocrity. I think this team is moving forward.
It's right on the edge of mediocrity, that's for sure. And I mean, you can look at the schedule and it bears out that way, because all of the teams that they've beaten, they just haven't been beaten by a bad team to this point in the season. And the teams that they have lost to are considered to be good teams. So yeah, it's weird that they find themselves right in that area. And that kind of leads me to the Steelers game. They're kind of, if they were to beat the Seahawks, I don't know, would you say it's a bad team or a good team that they got beat by?
A bad team, especially at this point of the year. But here's the frustrating part about the damn Steelers, okay? They have been a rolling dumpster fire this entire year on offense. This entire year. Then turn to Mason Rudolph last week and suddenly score a quadrillion points and fix their offense. Like, that is so annoying that they can be terrible for the entire year and then seemingly start to get right as you're about to play them.
It is annoying on the surface. But when you really break down what the Steelers did to the Bengals last week, it was 2 short-ish throws to George Pickens that he had yards after the catch just an insane number in terms of yards after the catch. And then it was Cincinnati quarterback Browning.
Jake Browning having 2 horrific picks.
Yeah, that then set up the Steelers in scoring position. And that is what allowed them to get all of those points off of either relatively short fields or on these short passes where Pickens torches the defense.
Right. It doesn't feel sustainable when you just watch the one game there from the Steelers. You're like, oh, okay. Jake Browning melted down. All of a sudden they were up 21 points. And then at that point, TJ Watt can just pin his ears back. And then it's a long day for a backup quarterback. And that's basically how that game ended up going.
A backup quarterback without his star receiver. He was throwing to T. Higgins all day.
Who?
Yeah, right. I don't know if you can who T. Higgins after that incredible touchdown grab from a couple weeks ago. And he's been filling in okay as their number one guy.
Cool. He definitely falls into even the blind squirrel can find a nut once in a while. People hype that dude up, and I just do not get it. Every T. Higgins game I watch, I'm like, where is he? And who thinks he's good? I don't get it.
He's good.
Maybe I just catch him on all the bad days. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
He's good, maybe not great. And that's fine too.
Sure. All right.
But we're not playing T. Higgins or the Bengals. We're playing the Steelers coming up this Sunday. And they're going to have to then, I don't know if this was George Pickens' revenge game and doing it against the Bengals just because it's a division rival and that everybody was getting on him for not blocking on one play of last week. So maybe he'll have gotten that out of his system now that he had his big day. That would be frustrating if this defense were to get torched by George Pickens.
My guess would be is that there's a possibility that he gets a lot of stuff more underneath, but those little slants that he busted into, 80-yard touchdowns as a yak monster, the way the Seahawks have been playing, and you heard Pete allude to it in his coach's show, is that they are backing the linebackers up just ever so slightly, playing more coverage, and then kind of leaving the run game there to be had for the other team and kind of living with it. He used a specific term, shoot, and I can't remember what it was. He said something like it wasn't smoke and mirrors, but like half a dude short or whatever he was saying about, God, it was something along those lines when it came to the run game because of the way that they're trying to not give up explosives by playing a little more deep there. I would imagine that they would be able to limit George Pickens from having that sort of game. And especially if Witherspoon can go, and it sounds like he might be on track to do so.
They do have the Pittsburgh run game to worry about. And Mike Tomlin, not afraid to use that run game with Najee Harris. They got, who's their other more, the quicker of
Warren.
The two. But Najee's more the downhill guy.
Najee's a downhill guy. Warren's more the scat back. They use both those guys a lot. It's funny. This Steelers team is almost a mirror image of the Titans team that we just played. An offensive line that struggles. You're playing a backup quarterback. They lean on the run game with 2 running backs. They have 1 star receiver. The defensive line is usually traditionally very good. The back end's a little iffy. I mean, shoot, they're starting 95-year-old Patrick Peterson at safety still. Like, that's what's happening for them right now.
Yeah.
But very, very similar teams. And both run-heavy teams that are in the bottom third of the league in terms of rushing yards. So they may get after it in the running game, but they're not very productive at it.
Mason Rudolph is a little bit Ryan Tannehill-y. Because I don't think, and that's another thing, if you get into the fourth quarter between these two teams, I'll take Geno in the clutch over Mason Rudolph in the clutch any day of the week.
That's because you're an idiot. I'd take Drew in the clutch every time.
I would take Drew in the clutch over Mason Rudolph too.
No, but he's so much better than Geno after that game. I'm so sick of Geno. Okay. He finished with 200 odd some yards and 2 touchdowns and a over 100 passer rating. And had 2 come from behind fourth quarter touchdowns and has led the team to 4 game-winning drives, which is exactly half of their victories. He stinks. Got to get rid of him ASAP. Wasn't a first rounder, Brandon.
He wasn't drafted in the first round. That's a true fact. It's interesting, though, because that brings up another point that was brought up in the coaches show this week. There was just a lot of information, I feel like, that came out of that, more than usual, because Gino had talked about the amount of time that they practice that 2-minute drill and how Pete Carroll practiced it more than any other team that he'd been on. And Salk asked him if that was intentional or, obviously Pete, he doesn't know anything different about how other teams do things because he does things the way that Pete Carroll does things. And right. It's kind of played out then to where when Gino or Drew have gotten into these situations, it's not an uncomfortable situation because they have laid down that foundation of practice.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear Pete talk about that because he started with, well, Russell was pretty good in those situations when we had him here. And then, Salk
brought up Wilson and Gino and then Pete threw Drew's name in there. He's like, well, Drew was pretty good too.
Yeah, that was definitely a little veiled Pete Carroll shot there for all of us talking faces out here. No doubt about it. There was a lot in that interview. Gosh, what was the other question that he asked where maybe it was Gino figuring something out?
It was with the receivers because it was JSN and DK and Tyler. And if they were figuring it out in terms of distributing the football.
Right. And I think Pete's initial reaction was something like just this sigh of exasperation of just like, God, I'm dealing with toddlers. Like they don't understand anything about anything. And it really came across through this whole interview of him just being like, not necessarily aimed at Salk or Brock or anything like that, but just kind of, football fans in general and just some of the talk from the media and things like that. He was so mad that he was being asked these questions, or annoyed maybe is the better word, where he's like, no, JSN's just coming along. And so now we can use him more and it's working out better. Like, how do you not understand this, people? Like that was Pete's basic reaction to that one.
The more and more that we do this, the more and more you recognize a lot of times how we're trying to take a very complicated game and simplify it into just easier parts to understand. And so if something isn't going well, it's because somebody's a moron and they just need to do better. When in reality, there's all these different pieces that are going into it, and it's hard to come up with the answer because if there's certain little things that are happening that don't allow a team to execute consistently, then you're trying to fix a bunch of little things, and it's not something that you can just say, oh, well, they just need to practice the screens more.
Yeah, like a butterfly flaps its wings in the equipment room, and then there's 1,000 other ripples that transfer through the team. Right? It does feel a little like that. To find the magic of having the scheme right, having the personnel right, having the chemistry between the players and the coaching staff right, having the schedule right, having injuries break right, having calls break right. There's so many different little tiny nuances of success or failure throughout the league that, yeah, maybe we do simplify it down a little bit too much. Run it a little more on first down and throw a slant now and then, which I still believe is the thing that will work. I don't care how much Pete scoffs at it, but because sometimes it is simple, stupid.
I think you're right. I think that there are times to where as coaches, they focus on more of the minutia, that they don't see some of the bigger picture things that maybe fans looking at it from that 10,000 foot level would do. And they blow it off as, oh, well, they don't know anything because what do they know? So it's weird. I think there are times where it is valid and times where it might not be. And finding which mix of those two, I suppose, would be difficult as a coach.
but I can also understand how easy it would be to have a hard time not being able to see the forest from the trees when you're in the middle of a season and dealing with all of the things. I can't imagine what's on a head coach's plate week in, week out, between the professional and the personal of that many men under your purview, not just the players, but all the coaches and the equipment staff, all that stuff. Like travel, like there's so much that goes into it. I can see how it would be difficult to do that. I think Pete Carroll needs to hire a 10,000 foot czar, and I would like to apply.
There you go.
But yes, I think sometimes the fans do see it more clearly than the coaches in season, but there's a lot that we don't know as well that probably skews our views and makes us not as right as we could be.
Well, sure. There's personality things in the locker room that they don't want to get out that might be impacting certain things. There might be injuries that have more of an issue. So yeah, there are a lot of things, and it makes me want to go more toward like understanding matchups like in this game. Like there's a couple different matchups I'm really looking forward to when it comes to the Steelers defense and the Seahawks offense. And the two guys that I think I'm most interested in is one, TJ Watt on the defensive line, how they handle him. And then Joey Porter Jr. in the secondary, who as a rookie is having a pretty solid season for a rookie. And the way that they use him, they generally put him on some of the toughest receiving matchups, which in a game where you do have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and JSN, how would they choose to deploy Joey Porter Jr.? Is it as easy as you put that dude on DK Metcalf, or do you try and take away someone like Tyler Lockett?
If I'm the Steelers, I take Joey Porter Jr. and I put him on DK because he's more of a long speed kind of guy rather than a jitterbug kind of corner. Mm-hmm. And I think that matches with DK's skill set more. Also, he's a very handsy corner. And
one of the most flagged corners this season, too.
Yeah. And I think you can get away with that a bit more against a huge dude like DK, much like guys used to pound the shit out of Shaq down in the post, even though he was pounding on them too. But he was so big that the type of abuse that he would take, you didn't really notice it. I think that would be to their advantage there as well. So that would be my guess. And then the Watt part terrifies me, dude, because I would do two things if I were the Steelers in this game. I get him matched up on Bradford as much as possible at right guard there, or I'd get him out on Cross because he's struggling a little bit this year. It hasn't been as good, and he's getting beat, especially on speed moves around the edge, more often than he did last year. So if they want to put him up against Big Abe all game, please, all day. That's the matchup that I want, because if there's anybody that has the ability to handle him, it's Abe, as much as a man can handle that sort of dude. But those are the two matchups that terrify me up front.
And it does look like Sean Hockley is going to be reffing this game, and that dude loves to be on TV. So we could potentially see a lot of penalties then if it is a DK versus Joey Porter Jr. matchup.
Well, it all depends if they call PI, much like the officiating crew did in Tennessee, where if you put on a uniform with a DB number and stand on the field, you might get flagged if a guy runs, I don't know, just into you while you're standing around, like Trey Brown.
Yeah.
That was such a bullshit call. Going back and rewatching the game, like that one was so bad. So bad. He has the right to his space.
Pete was fuming on that one too. See, it all goes, this came up in the coach's show too, in terms of calls. And cause I think Salk asked him about something and it just led Pete right to this call with Trey Brown. He's like, oh yeah, we're sending that one to the league.
Yeah. We're challenging some things this week, I think is what he said. And
that's what it was.
Yeah, I'm glad he did, because I just don't know what Trey Brown's supposed to do right there. So you're right, though. I mean, Hockley is one of those FaceTime refs. He likes making sure his mom sees him each and every week on the screen. So, yeah, Hockley is definitely a guy that enjoys his spotlight.
In terms of other matchups, I am hopeful that we get to see some Witherspoon this week because I think that makes a big difference in this game. I feel like we talked about the two guys that you really have to worry about in terms of Pickens and Najee Harris. And I think they're playing with some significant injuries on their offensive line too. So I think you said it when you compared this team very much like the Titans offense. It really is.
It is. And this week you have the benefit of playing at home as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, Mason cool. Rudolph coming into Lumen Field. And I'm having a hard time seeing another big Mason Rudolph game.
I can't imagine that dude putting together back-to-back performances. There's a reason why he's been a third stringer behind freaking Trubisky for the majority of the year.
And that's the other thing that I don't quite understand about if Pickett is healthy and good to go. Why is he not going to be out there for this game? He must just not be healthy.
Yeah, I don't think he's completely healthy. And then why would you risk a guy who's a little small at the position to begin with for the last couple weeks of the season when you're not going anywhere?
They're in playoff contention.
They're not going anywhere. See, here's the difference. I haven't seen the Steelers beat a bunch of legit good teams, whereas the Seahawks, they have some marquee wins on their schedule here from earlier in the year. Like, there's some good teams. The Lions are a good team. The Browns are a good team. The Eagles are a good team. They damn near beat Dallas.
The Steelers beat the Browns. The Steelers beat the Ravens. They beat the Rams.
Okay, fine.
So
I
guess
don't like
by the time they got their two Bengals wins, Burrow was out. But
those are all divisional games too, which they always get weird. The NFC
we
North
throw out the divisional
weird.
games here.
Yeah, that's why I didn't tout, winning or losing against the Rams, man. Like,
so yeah, their significant wins were within division. That's a tough division, though.
It is. Yeah, very much so.
The Steelers close out with two tough games on the road. Then for them, going on the road in Seattle this coming Sunday on the 31st. And then they close out their season against the Ravens.
So is this the game that you look at as Steelers fans where you're going, this is where the team is fighting to save Tomlin's job going forward? Because he's one of the legacy coaches that have been grouped into the discussion of they're too old, they've been there too long, and they need to go. Belichick, Tomlin, Carroll.
Well, isn't that one of the crazy things is that Tomlin hasn't had a losing season in his career? Did they finish above 500 last year?
I want to say at least 500, if not a game better.
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, he was 9-8 last year and 9-7-1 the year before. He's had three 500 seasons where they finished 8-8. So yeah, he's never finished below 500.
What a bum.
That now that kind of has me worried because I look at the last two games, they're 8-7 and they just need to win one game to finish above 500. And if I'm being honest, that Pittsburgh beating the Seahawks seems like more likely than Pittsburgh beating the Ravens a second time, the way the Ravens have been playing.
Ravens are going to rest everybody last week. So then you get your gimme there. And
there we go.
Yeah, they're going to lose against the Seahawks this week. Please, please, please.
That's how that can work. Tomlin can have his streak continue and everything works out for both teams. Although I do feel like can the Ravens lock up the number 1 seed then this week?
I don't know. I was just pulling up the playoff picture here.
That's what would have to happen is but I feel like the Ravens are in really good position after the win over the Niners because who else is near them in the AFC at this point? It feels like they do play the Dolphins. Yeah. So that's it. They play the Dolphins this coming week. And
that's it.
And so if they beat the Dolphins, then they should be in first place comfortably.
Yes. Yeah. Because they're a game up on the Dolphins as it is. Okay. And then they would be 2 games up with a tiebreaker. Yeah.
Perfect. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm trying to figure this out just so Tomlin can have a winning season, other than it just seems inevitable after so many years. But
no. This is why, because you want him to clinch that against the Ravens and not the Seahawks. Just choose the right bird to do it against.
Yeah. Let's see. Do we at least get bailed out of the fact that the Ravens and the Dolphins play then before the Seahawks and Steelers game starts?
Ooh, maybe.
Dolphins, Ravens. So it is it's a 10 a.m. Pacific start time. So yes, we will know the outcome of that game by the time that Steelers Seahawks starts.
And twist my arm to root against the Dolphins.
Okay. Yeah. Not hard for you.
No.
This is where we're at in the NFL season, to where Ravens Dolphins really shouldn't impact the Seahawks at all. And yet we've found a way to have a rooting interest in that game, just based off of, I don't know, how things have gone in the past.
Yes, exactly. And then I guess we have to talk about at some point here the playoff picture for the Seahawks in terms of, obviously they win, they're in. We all know that, but who are we rooting against next week? Do we want to get in that in the second half of the show, or did you want to hit that now?
You know what? We've covered everything there is, I think, with the Steelers matchup coming up that I think we want to talk about. We've essentially covered every single talking point from the coaches show on Monday following this game. I'd say it is time we just get to the second half of the show.
All right, let's do it.
When you save on auto insurance for driving safe with USAA Safe Pilot, you'll feel like a big deal, even in a traffic jam. Save up to 30% with USAA Safe Pilot. Restrictions apply.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
I'm Margot Robbie, and I play Barbie.
And I'm Ryan Gosling, and I play Ken.
Max is now the exclusive streaming home of Barbie.
So cool.
And the Max with Ads plan is included with your Cricket $60 unlimited plan at no additional cost. Log in with your Cricket username and password to experience Max on all your favorite devices.
This is the best day ever.
It is the best day ever.
Don't miss Barbie, now streaming on Max. Phone plan streams in standard definition. Programming subject to change. Fees, terms, and restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
So as we get into the second half of the show, it is getting close to playoff time in the NFL. The Seahawks are in it. And Adam, it almost sounded like toward the end of the first half there, did you want to talk about rooting guide, like what teams we need to root for and that sort of thing? Because this is in my wheelhouse.
Oh yeah, it's totally in your wheelhouse. The only reason I want to talk about it is because we're rooting for kissing sisters, i.e. incest this week. That's the only thing that I know. Yeah.
Are you referring to the one scenario that needs to happen for the Seahawks to clinch a playoff berth in week 17?
It's the only one I know, and the only reason I want to talk about it was just to joke about incest on our show. That's it.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness you got in the fact that the Vikings and Packers are sisters that need to kiss, I guess.
Yeah.
So that the Seahawks can clinch a playoff spot with a win.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, in that very unlikely scenario that the Vikings and Packers end in a tie after overtime, I'm glad we spent time on that.
Yeah. Do we care more who wins or loses out of the Vikings and Packers?
Between the Vikings and Packers, I'm looking at the fieldgoals.com rooting guide, and it says that the Packers have at least one tie-breaking scenario on the Seahawks, and the Vikings have an unassailable conference record tiebreaker on the Seahawks, which leads me then to believe that maybe we want the Packers to win between the two.
So just by looking at the playoff probability, it looks as if the Vikings have a 51% chance with a win and the Packers a 56% chance with a win. So I would think that the Packers would probably have a better shot of knocking us out if they win.
Well, they do, because the reason for that is because week 18 for the Packers is against the Bears, and week 18 for the Vikings is against the Lions. So it does make it more likely then that if Green Bay wins, they should be able to essentially win out. Although who knows if they'll actually be able to beat the Bears.
Well, some things that stand out to me when I look at this is that Right now, the Seahawks, their current playoff percentage is 69%. They are 88% for making the playoffs if they win, 41% if they lose. That's awfully high, because then you look at the Catfish Rams, and currently 64% to make it, but only 25% chance of making it if they lose against the New York Football Giants. Let's go G-Men right there. And then both the Vikings and Packers, it's 5% or less if they lose their respective games.
Well, that's the great thing of what we saw happen. Our Christmas gift of a game of the Ravens beating the San Francisco 49ers. Like, that wasn't just good for our holiday. That was good for how this playoff system ranks out, because we want the Niners and Rams game to matter. And now it does, because just of the sheer fact of San Francisco losing to Baltimore. Now that week 18 game against the Rams is going to matter, because it's going to be the Eagles, the Lions, and, you know, maybe even the Cowboys, depending on what shakes out this week, all trying to make a case for that number 1 seed.
That's right. And so thanks a lot to the Ravens there, for sure. I never thought I'd have those words come out of my mouth, but excited about that. So the other teams that we're definitely rooting against then in the NFC this next week are Saints, Falcons, Bears. Looks like.
I think we want the Saints to lose, because we would prefer the Bucs just to clinch the division.
That's what I was saying. Rooting against the Saints.
Okay.
Rooting against. Yeah. Okay, I'm with you.
And Seattle holds a tiebreaker over New Orleans, so that's a good scenario. And then Vikings, Packers, ideally a tie, but I suppose if a team has to win, we would want it to be the Vikings, and Giants over the Rams, because screw the Rams.
Exactly. All day, every day. And screw the Falcons. We don't want them in just because America likes to watch good football. And we don't need to see them.
I think actually with the Falcons, if it came down to a tiebreaker, the Seahawks have all the tiebreakers anyway. So even if I think the Falcons won out and the Seahawks went 1-1, then that's fine.
Man, that dub against the Eagles really did make a massive difference in the way that this season could finish out, for sure. That's amazing. And to see that their probability odds are well above 50% right now as we stand, that's pretty encouraging as well. In the middle of that horrendous 4-game losing streak, I mean, how many people, if you told them, look, dude, with 2 weeks to go, you're going to have roughly a 70% shot of making the playoffs, even in the middle of this, I bet you most people would tell you to go shut your mouth.
You know, when you first brought up the idea of talking about playoffs, I thought you might be getting into the idea of which team we would want to see go on a bye, which team would we want to end up facing in the first round. Because that's kind of...
No, I just wanted to make incest jokes. Seriously, that was it.
Perfect. Well, maybe that's a discussion for next week then, depending on
with
how
Clinton.
things go. With Clinton.
I know it's more fun for you. Yeah.
Well, if the Seahawks were to face the Niners in the playoffs, I would almost prefer it to be in a second round scenario and not the first round one, because, well, I don't know. I want to see a playoff win, and I think one against the Niners is fairly unlikely, but maybe it gets more likely in a second round situation. I don't know. It just feels, it would feel better to me, I suppose.
If the Seahawks were to win out and the Rams were to drop one against the Giants and or Niners, that would vault us into the 6th seed, right?
We just have to finish with a better record. So,
right.
We're
tied at 8-7.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But the way things are working out, it doesn't necessarily mean the 6 or 7 seed, either one is going to play, because we don't know where the Niners are going to work out in terms of if they're going to end up getting the bye, if the Eagles get the bye, if the Lions get the bye at this point.
Oh my gosh. I think I'm going to say this, Brandon. I want the Niners to get the 1 seed.
Oh?
And then they have the bye.
Because then they're virtually guaranteed either the Eagles or Lions, 2 teams that they've already beat this year.
Yes. And they can go into Santa Clara the following week, riding the high of what would that be at that point? A 5-game winning streak. in having beaten yet another NFC playoff team, either the Lions, who they have there. We have the Lions and the Eagles number. Like, we're basically the Rams to their teams.
It's been that way. That's how it's played out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that continues in the playoffs, especially with the Eagles. I feel like that one of all teams is the team that we have their number.
Oh, big time. And I think they're hitting the wall a little bit there. And I do think that, God, this is another thing I can't believe I'm saying on this show. Bosa actually had a good comment when he talked about them kind of creating the blueprint to help stop the Eagles. And it seems to be true.
Interesting.
Ugh. We may need to get to a different segment. I don't like this at all.
You know what? One of the segments that I think always picks us up and makes us happy is our Welcome to the Flock segment, where we get to welcome some new members of the flock, thank those of you who are helping to support the show. And we are going to start with our executive producers, DCH, Becca Christensen, Brian Shaw, Jake Burdine, John DeSmartu, Garen Taylor, and Has No Clue. Brian Shaw, he sent me a photo that he was hanging out on Christmas down in Australia with one of our members of the flock, Nathan Walsh, down there in Sydney. So, yes, even on Christmas, our flock gathering in all parts of the world.
That is, I can't even put it into words how crazy that is. The idea that two people that listen to our nonsense were literally on the other side of the globe, both, the other side and then also, the other hemisphere. That's impressive. I didn't know that we'd ever have that sort of influence or reach. That's really cool.
And, of course, we'll be thanking our $12 a month and above flockers at the end of the show. We're going to start things off. Fernando Tejada in at $60 annual pledge. Fernando's been around, I feel like, since the start of the show. But yes, he's also, I don't know if that's a change or an upgrade or a change of a card. It showed up on my list. Fernando, a big thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally appreciate your continued and everlasting support. You are an amazing little flocker, no doubt about it.
Has No Clue also back in, said late Christmas gift sent of $124.24. Of course, Has No Clue, helping out purchasing the Starlink system for Adam, but also coming in with an additional Christmas gift and saying anyone can fan how they choose. We can all have varying opinions on the state and direction we personally want to see for the Hawks. I'll always want them to win every game and always hope there can be civil discussions. For no rational reason, all the times I hear this last game that this was Pete Carroll football, it irks me. We didn't have a good day running the ball or defending the run, which is the exact opposite of Pete football. Come season's end for me, I would like to see a new head coach and staff. Yes, there's always reap what you sow and careful what you wish for. But for me personally, I'm ready for the risk of not just being around a 500 team with a defensive coach that has bottom of the half league numbers. I'm ready for change and hoping to not get the wrath of any Adam or Brandon rant. If and when we go on a miraculous Super Bowl run, my rant goes in the trash and I'll be a happy fool. Anyways, happy holidays to the flock. Glad to see Starlink appears to be working. And go Hawks. Hashtag Team More Bobo from Has No Clue.
Hey, appreciate that. Has No Clue. No doubt about it. Look, I do agree in the sense of, everybody has a valid opinion on the matter for sure. It does all come down to risk tolerance, right? Mm-hmm. For me personally, in this situation, I think the likelihood of getting a coach that is better than Pete Carroll is so low in comparison to the risk of Pete actually proving us correct in going on a longer run next year, that it doesn't make sense to me to make the change. And I get that other people would have a different risk profile there. But when you go back and look at the coaches, man, that the coaching hires at the head coaching position since Pete got into the league, woo, Nelly. The amount of hits compared to whiffs is real low.
And that would bring in one of the unknowns, too. It's not like Jody Allen has a track record of hiring amazing coaches to coach for the Seahawks in her time as an owner. She has no record. So the kind of...
So she doesn't have a bad one either.
Unknown.
She doesn't have a bad one either.
Record. She doesn't have a good record. She has zero record.
Yeah, exactly. But Honestly, though, if we are looking at this time of year next year and we are basically doing the same exact thing where the defense hasn't turned that corner with one more offseason and the offense continues to be as inconsistent as it has, and the team as a whole is this inconsistent. If we're at this point next year, after 3 years of this rebuild, then yeah, I'm probably with the regime changers at that point. That's a big if, and that's a long ways away. We've got a lot to see yet. And I think if the Seahawks win a playoff game this year, which I think is in range, it could change the narrative for a lot of folks, I think.
I would say that my tolerance would come down to the way that it would get me on board for sure this offseason. If the Seahawks were to win enough in the playoffs to then face the Rams and lose to the Rams one more time, then I'm ready to move. I'm ready to move on.
That would be the straw right there.
It would be a difficult straw because it would probably take an NFC championship game, but it would just be it would be so infuriating to lose for a third time to the Rams and then to watch them go to a Super Bowl. That would be the straw that breaks my back.
I think I'd have to find like a watermelon or a pumpkin or something like that to set out my backyard and perform an ammo dump after that. Like I would definitely have to shoot something multiple times if that did occur. I would understand the frustration.
Ammo dump? I thought maybe you were going for a Gallagher situation where you just smash it with a hammer.
Oh, yeah. No, just because, the shooting's a perishable skill. I haven't practiced for a good long time. Like, you kill two birds with one stone, or two pumpkins with one stone, so to speak. Yeah. Yeah,
or a couple watermelons. One of those things.
Yeah.
Well, plenty of things to talk about in the offseason. I'm sure that conversation won't change. We also have a $20.17 score donation from our good buddy, Stephen Kirkpatrick.
Stephen, you are the antithesis of inconsistent. Steven's always there for us that way, man. We appreciate you, dude.
Also, always consistent is Guaranteed Barbecue. I suppose except for the hours that he's open, because he's never open whenever I go through there. But that could be because my schedule going through there is inconsistent too. And so I very rarely get to enjoy the Little Flocker discount of 12%. But you can bet the next time I'm at the food trailer in Kellogg, Idaho, I'm going to be talking about the Little Flockers discount, and Garen's going to be heaping up a plate of food for me.
100%, no doubt about it. And yeah, you said that Guaranteed Barbecue is consistent. It makes sense considering it's guaranteed.
Right. It's part of the name.
It's part of the name.
Well, one name that I feel like we're always getting more familiar with each and every week is our benevolent overlord of the Pick'em League. We welcome in Evie. Evie says, "Happy Christmas, Brandon, Adam, and all my underlings. Please receive my festive congratulations. All of you picked the Seahawks, and we won! So yay! Although my mom told him on Christmas Eve that he was meant to be festive with the family, instead, Dad was off watching the game on his phone. Dad is happy, though, still in the top 5, although he doesn't really like the whiners, as he calls them. This week, evidently, they can't win, and he has picked them, and he forgot to reverse donkey this week, and they let him down." Thank you to Shouting Out 9L. The forum WhatsApp group started messaging to say how funny they found it. They liked Brandon's English accent, although we don't sound like that in Derby where we live. We aren't that posh. We all drop our H's. But I did get to perform on the Globe stage last year in a spoken English competition where the real bard had his plays performed. Keep up the good work and keep the Seahawks winning. It keeps Dad happy. Go Hawks, from Evie.
That's impressive. One of the things I took away from our benevolent overlord's email there is that I have upgraded to my name being used instead of just being the yelly one. And that touches my heart this holiday season. Thank you. Thank you, Evie.
That does feel like a win for sure.
It does. Yeah.
I will also say that it feels like a win that our Pick'em segments have turned into emails from Evie and going over the standings, because at this point, Adam has generally given up on his picks, which is fine. It happens every year. And
every year.
And that's just where we happen to be.
Yeah. I mean, I'm consistent, at least.
Getting into our Pick'em League standings, looking at Week 16, there was a 3-way tie at the top with 13 picks correct. We've got your finest glass of Chardonnay. Cameron Cole, there's one of our flockers who we've known for, since the beginning of the show, it feels like. Yeah. I remember hanging out with Cameron when we went over for the Giants game all those years ago.
100%. Yeah.
Unlimited Flocker, also in the top 3, and it is your finest glass of Chardonnay, back-to-back weeks, getting the Pick'em League victory.
Wow. Well, much like fine wine, their season is aging nicely.
And yet still not among the top 10. But maybe with weeks like that, we start to see your finest glass of Chardonnay getting into the top. But we've got Hotlanta Hawk up top, along with Tram Ranners, and Are You Not Centertained? Love to Wags My Dixon, Chris Stoll, My Bush Witherspoon, and Gino's Best.
Oh, man. Every so often, the names just get me, dude. Like, those ones are hilarious.
Are You Not Centertained? Seem to tickle
That's
your
the one.
Fancy pretty well there.
The funny part is that last night, Britt and I decided that we were going to watch Gladiator because it was about ready to leave Netflix or something like that. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen that movie in a good long time. The thing is, still a banger. Still a banger. Yeah, that's a good flick. Say what you want about Russell Crowe one way or the other.
He likes to fight?
Oh, I didn't realize. He likes to throw down, huh?
Maybe I think it's just because of how they portray him on South Park. Because he went through a stretch to where he was on South Park. It portrayed a lot, and it was always him fighting people.
Yeah. No, there was a stretch there where he was doing some weird stuff. Yeah. Maybe he's back. I don't know. But whatever he was doing during the Gladiator thing, that was good for his deal. That was working.
I also haven't watched South Park in quite a while either, apart for an episode here and there. And so I don't know if that's a consistent running thing or not.
Hard telling, not knowing.
All right. Well, we've got one more email in from Evie's potential overlord. Hugh coming in. It says, hi, both. Or should that be hi, all three of you, as Evie now describes it as her podcast to me, too. To say a monster has been created is an understatement, but she loves it.
She has intro music. She runs, all of our lives, especially in pick'em ways. Like, yeah, it's her show. She could take ownership anytime now, it seems like. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Hugh continues, I'm loving the last 2 wins and can see us making the playoffs, and depending on the opposition, 1 win or maybe 2 in the postseason. When you look at the league, there are 9 sides with better records than us. Of those 9 sides, we have played 6 of them, one of them twice, whiners. In those games, we have 3 victories and 4 defeats, which to go at nearly 500 against the best teams in the league is decent. The 2 results that will hurt us are the 2 losses to the Lambs. You flip even one of those, and our record looks so much better, and we are looking at a better seeding. On the other current topic of cut Geno and draft a quarterback in round 1, while an exciting thought, does that really guarantee success and an improved record? Since the 2018 draft, there have been 21 quarterbacks drafted in round 1. Of those 21, 15 would be current starters in the NFL today, for their sides, for their teams if healthy, so around a 75% success rate. But let's look at those 15 and play who would you actually like on our team.
Yeah.
There are 4. There are 4, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Tua, I would snap your hand off for. And, well, Tua, that I don't know if I'm
out on Tua.
Tua over Geno.
If I get Tua and Mike McDaniel at the same time, then sure. If they come as a package
we
deal
can agree
to
on those other 3, though. Josh Allen, Lamar, and Burrow.
Yes.
Another 4, C.J. Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, and Justin Fields, who I could make a case for, and then 7 who I wouldn't touch. Then don't forget the other 6 who can't even get a start for a team. Let's talk about those 4. Stroud, Lawrence, Herbert, Fields. Because there's one of these names where I think people would lean toward and say yes. And it's Justin Herbert for me. Is Justin Herbert better than Geno Smith? I feel like when it comes to clutchiness, like Herbert's shown to be anti-clutch.
Okay, this is real simple. Yes to Justin Herbert all day long. I'd make that trade. Geno straight up for Herbert every time. That's not even close. The difference in the clutchiness, it was illustrated to you in the coaching show because we keep going back to it today. Let's go to the well one more time. They talked about practicing the 2-minute drives and all that stuff and practicing the clutchy moments. Basically, poor Herbert is saddled with the most anti-clutch organization that you possibly could be right now. They have been saddled with this for years and years and years. I know Herbert for sure, Stroud for sure. Who was the other ones?
Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields.
Fields, no. Lawrence, maybe.
All right. Also, amongst those 21 quarterbacks selected in round 1 since 2018, there is a grand total of 0 Super Bowl winners. So, does selecting a quarterback in round 1 guarantee success? Does it? Catfish! I'd rather build with a decent to good quarterback and give him more weapons and a better defense. Yes, maybe draft a quarterback later and sit and learn, but in round 1, I'd steer clear. Apologies for a lengthy email, but it is Christmas and I've got time to kill. As ever, keep up the great work and go Hawks from Hugh. He also includes a list of quarterbacks from 2018. We could go through those if we want to, but it is interesting then to say no Super Bowls since 2018, leaving out the fact that if you go back 1 year, then you do have a first-round quarterback with a Super Bowl win because it's Patrick Mahomes.
Who is the exception to all the rules. So, fine. You're not just going to get Patrick Mahomes for sure with the first-round draft pick.
Patrick Mahomes in the 2024 draft, Adam. Just do it.
I heard KJ say this, and I think he's spot on about it. He's like, do you understand how hard it is to end up with a quarterback that plays at a higher level than Geno Smith? Like the unlikeliness of finding that, it's really difficult. And I'm totally with Hugh here. Take this exact offense, as frustrating as it is to watch week in, week out, and the inconsistencies and some of the things they do, and pair that with a top 5 defense, and that's a championship game team right there.
I do wonder, though, would I go defense early or would I? Well, I guess it wouldn't much matter if they just go trenches on the first couple rounds of the draft this coming year.
I mean,
or linebacker. I could see going linebacker early.
Linebacker for sure. I think we need a lot more speed at that position. I think that's going to make a huge difference. And then I can start my annual offseason draft all your picks in the trenches rant right now if you want, before the offseason even starts, because you know how I feel about it.
It does feel like it may be a good time to maybe take a quarterback at some point, but that's it.
Wouldn't hate it.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see who's coming out, where they're going to end up going. This point of the season, it's weird because I feel like at this time every year you hear talk about, oh, well, so-and-so will be available toward the middle or end of the first round as quarterback, and we should go draft that guy. And then inevitably you get toward the draft, and there's 3 quarterbacks that go in the top 6, and then everybody else is kind of, I don't know, they could be good. And every year it works out that way, as we have it projected as to where their talent ranks out, and then the draft rolls around and all the quarterbacks are up at the top. The good ones. Yep.
No, you're 100% right there. The last couple of years, the quarterback classes have not been overwhelming, in my opinion. And the thing is that it's kind of proven out that way with the play on the field. If anybody recalls, the only quarterback that I thought was worth a damn in last year's draft was CJ Stroud. I didn't like any of the quarterbacks in the year prior. And Kenny Pickett is the only quote unquote starter. Would you trade Geno Smith for Kenny Pickett? Not in a million effing years. No way. This year, I've yet to go through the quarterbacks yet, but you start hearing a lot of names.
Let's hang on that 22 class for a second, because one of them is Malik Willis, who he's the 3rd stringer in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Another one, Desmond Ridder, who's been on and off again. Another one, Sam Howell, who just got benched for their backup in Washington for these last couple weeks. So, well, maybe not the last couple weeks, but at least for the Week 17 game. It sounds like they're rolling with... Who are they rolling with? Trying to think of who the backup is in Washington now.
I think the only answer that really matters is just not Howell. And I'm good with it. Because I was out on Howell big time. A lot of people tried to talk me into that one. I was definitely on the
I
never
was kind
Ritter
of in
team.
on Howell a little bit.
I know. And I was never Ritter. And I thought Bryce Young is a dink and dunk quarterback that has a tendency to get flustered when he gets pressure. And I give you Exhibit A this season.
Oh, Jake Brisket. Yeah, Jacoby Brissett. He's the backup in Washington.
Hey, all right. Is Jacoby Brissett this generation's Fitzmagic without the magic?
He's this generation's something. He's just a consistent backup quarterback that I guess, where would you put him? Who was the quarterback that played a little bit for the Jets? Like Chad Pennington.
Oh, that's way unfair to Chad Pennington. Get out of here. He was really good for a few years there before he hurt his elbow. He had marginal arm strength to start, and then he hurt his elbow, and it was over. Yeah, that's unfair.
I don't feel like that's super unfair to Chad Pennington.
That's super. He's so much. His ceiling was so much higher than Brissett. It's not even funny in terms of their best play. Get out of here.
Sorry for my approach on middling quarterbacks and then not ranking them properly. Sheesh.
Yeah. Your Chad Pennington disdain here will not go unchecked. No, thank you. I'm very offended.
There's probably someone even that we're I don't know,
forgetting, because Jacoby Brissett is a completely forgettable quarterback who just comes in. He's basically Brian Hoyer.
This generation's Brian Hoyer is probably it is probably the better
Case
comparison.
Keenum. Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know if I'd be that unfair to Case Keenum.
That's fair.
You're right. That dude won playoff game.
He did. You're right. You're not wrong.
On to do better and better at life.
All right, man. My do better this week is, well, it all revolves around the fact that somebody's not going to have a chance to win playoff games this year because their organization, their cheap $1 billion organization, is too cheap to give the guy a chance to go out and try to make it so that he puts out some good tape, maybe get a playoff win so that he can further his career. My do better this week is for the backstabbing Denver Broncos who took their quarterback, Russell Carrington Wilson, and planted a knife right between his shoulder blades here this week. He is officially benched for the upcoming game here for the Broncos, who are in playoff contention, all because they're totally afraid of an injury guarantee kicking in of $37 million. Mr. Walton, you are literally made of Benjis. That's what you are. There's no amount of money that you cannot afford 20 times over. Basically, they're saying, we're just too cheap to pay you that money, and we're going to take away the opportunity for you to lead this team into the playoffs and pick up a dub, maybe increase your trade value so that you may have a chance at a real decent situation next year for another organization. They're doing Russell Wilson dirty. Sean Payton is doing Russell Wilson dirty here. I don't like it. And the whole organization needs to do better.
Yeah, on top of this, I think it was a report from Ian Rappaport that said that they were, it was Jordan Schultz from Bleacher Report who was saying there was almost some pressure put upon Russ to give up his injury guarantees to allow him to stay on the field the last couple of weeks. So it's definitely coming down to this idea of, sure, they want him to play, but they don't want to risk injury because of the idea that when it comes to the offseason, one, they're either going to cut him, they're going to try and trade him, they're going to try and restructure his salary, and they can't do that, obviously, if he gets injured in these final couple weeks. So, yeah, they wanted him, even though the organization made the really stupid move, in my opinion, of signing Russ to another extension that they didn't have to do. And now they want to pull it back because it's inconvenient to them.
No, they don't want to pull it back, Brandon. I can imagine Condoleezza Rice walking in and sitting down with Russ and being like, we're going to need to roll back your contract here. Like the Waltons being like, we're going to roll back the price of this. Those cheap bastards, get out of here.
Yeah. it's a bummer for Russ that he's having to go through all this. But yeah, I don't feel bad for the Broncos as an organization, because I think that they could move on and find out things could get a whole lot worse with, Sean Payton's had Drew Brees for a lot of his career. And I don't think Jared Stidham's going to come in. And it's a very minute chance at the Broncos making the playoffs anyway. I think it involves the Steelers having to lose to the Seahawks. So I'm not even going to take that into account as a potential thing that happens. And screw the Broncos. Go ahead and lose your final 2 games with Jared Stidham. And then next year, we'll see how you like it, Sean Payton, once Russ goes and is not on the team anymore.
Do you want to hear my crazy prediction for 2024? Are you ready?
Ooh, yeah.
Drew Lock is competing for the Denver Broncos starting quarterback position, and Russell Wilson is Geno Smith's new backup next year. Not in a trade. They both are just released or cut, and that's the way that the cookie crumbles.
You know what? I would be okay with that playing out.
Yeah. Now, how would you feel about Russ being the backup to Geno?
He could be Geno's backup.
Do you think he can be Geno's backup?
I mean, I wonder how a large portion of the fan base would feel about that.
Yeah, I know.
One, that they're deciding to roll with Geno, and because if they bring in Russ, that means they're definitely not drafting a quarterback, because what's the likelihood of carrying 3 quarterbacks through the whole year? So that would be put off for another year. That can't work.
That's a fun storyline.
It would ruffle the feathers of too many butterflies.
That's true. That's true. But the other thing I see for Russ, possibly, I could see him in Carolina as Bryce Young's mentor.
If he's going to back somebody up and potentially start. Well, he's going to end up starting, because then Bryce Young he may need to sit another year anyway.
Yeah. I don't think that makes his arm any stronger.
The Giants move on from Daniel Jones. Russ finally gets to go to New York and be a New York quarterback.
Ciara loves it. This has been her plan the whole time. Maybe this is all Ciara's fault.
It's just a long-term plan for Ciara. She had it all worked out.
Yeah.
Go to Denver, fail under the Waltons, and then parlay that into a move to New York just in time for Daniel Jones to head out the door.
The cheap ass Waltons. Just $37 million for the Waltons. If it was lying on the ground, it literally wouldn't be worth their time to pick it up.
The thing about being cheap, once they move on from them, it's a significant cap hit, though.
Yeah, that they did to themselves. Boof who for the billionaires. Is it what? Am I supposed to shed a tear for them?
I'm just saying that doesn't go into being cheap when you give Russ a big contract that you don't have to.
That's true.
That just seems dumb.
Well,
you know what else is dumb?
Me?
No.
Oh, that felt right.
I'm slowly becoming on board with you with this idea of computer updates, Adam, because here recently I had a note that my Mac, there's a new operating system, and I'm thinking, okay, you got me. It's kind of a slow time of year. I'm going to go ahead and push through this update. And actually, I think it had been there for months, because one of the things, especially with podcasting gear, I feel like you never want to be the first one to update it, because it's going to break something.
For every one thing it fixes, 2 bad things are going to happen.
Well, and here I am. I know this, but I thought that it had been out long enough that I'd be kind of in the clear, and that they'd have worked out all the bugs, and I could go ahead and update. And you're right. There's always 1 or 2 things that it really screws up. I push through the update, and here's the weird thing, and this was totally unexpected. I have 2 monitors that I use as part of my podcasting computer. It helps to have a couple different screens. And as soon as the update went through, other monitor wouldn't turn on. The other monitor would not turn on no matter what I did. I changed out cables. I even thought, well, shoot, is there a chance that my monitor just stopped working coincidentally with this update? No, plugged it into another computer. Monitor works fine. So I went to Walmart, as it turns out, because they were the only place open when I decided to get this to work. And I got a couple different adapters. And what ended up happening is I needed to buy a $70 Apple adapter to plug the same HDMI cable that I had plugged into between these two devices before, plug it into that. Magically, the next screen, it starts to work again. I guess there was some security protocol that goes into these HDMI cables that they killed at having that direct connection. So that was the other. No, it was the USB, like anything that was plugged into the newer USB ports, like the thing that connects to the podcasting deck and the extra monitor that I had plugged into the back of the iMac. Both of those, like those USB cables, they ceased to work. And so, yeah, I had to get a $70 adapter just to make it work. Same exact cable. Apple, do better.
Oh, that would have lit my hair on fire so hard. That's basically just being like, we're just going to steal $70 from everybody that uses two monitors here on out. It's so familiar, too, because I updated the Mac Mini a while back. This is maybe like last year. And after doing the update, internet was just so damn slow, like dial-up slow. Like,
yeah,
you can't even check your email slow. What's going on? What's going on? Come to find out, the USB ports, now, if you plugged in a non-powered USB hub into like the two USB ports that you had, it killed your Wi-Fi. You couldn't have fast Wi-Fi. Why those two things are connected, I'll never know. Much like your USB ports here being killed because you updated. Now you can't hook up a monitor for like no effing reason. What a racket, dude. Unbelievable.
Yeah, so you're limited on the number of USB ports that you have. And now I have to plug my podcasting deck into a different port for it to work as it did before. I had to get this little dongle to go in the old USB port to make that port function so I could use a second monitor. Makes
when it
no
worked
sense.
just fine. When it worked just fine without your nonsense update. Yeah. No, updates are the plague. Stay away from them. I have an update that's been flashing on this Mac Mini for well over 8-9 months now. Won't do it. Remind me later.
I thought it was just an old man, grumpy old man thing, but maybe I'm becoming that guy.
That is bothered by stupidity for like no reason. Yeah. And what did it fix for you? What did this update do for you, Brandon? What's better now in your life?
I don't know. I don't think it made anything better. No, you know what? I do. I have this little thing now. When I click on the background, it gets rid of all my windows. And I don't think
you could have had
helps.
a hot corner set up for that.
I guess maybe
we had those in 2002.
Yeah. But I'll randomly click on the screen now and all the windows will go away.
My adult daughter wasn't even a being when we had hot corners to do that very thing.
I guess that's the thing that they have built in easily now that everybody... Is that a function that a lot of people wanted? I guess so.
I know one function they didn't want was to have to spend $70 to make the thing that just work again.
I was so mad. I was so mad when I bought that little thing and I thought, you know what, if this works, because it's that idea of, oh, sure, this is the thing that would make it work. Like I'll pay $70 for this because this would be what they would do.
Yeah.
And it turns out
because they have you hostage. Yeah.
It's dumb. On to Better at Life.
All right, man. My Better at Life than Skip Bayless this week is for my University of Montana Grizzlies. They are playing in the FCS championship coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend on the 7th. Huge game coming up against South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits, who are just a juggernaut, apparently, in the FCS division. And the Grizz are huge underdogs, but they haven't been this far in the playoffs for a minute. They brought back former head coach Bobby Hauck, an actual Montana dude, and he's got this thing turned around. The quarterback kid's exciting. They had a thriller of a game in the semifinals against North Dakota State, and you know how much we love beating the North Dakotans and everything, right, Brandon? And that felt real good. Double overtime, thrilling game. It's awesome to see. For them to actually make it back to the championship game once again and to get me even mildly interested in Division I AA college football. You guys are better at life than Skip Bayless.
I was going to ask you, are you genuinely interested in this, or did DCH feed you you're better at life this week?
No. DCH did not feed it to me, but I did manage to catch the end of the semifinal playoff game. And again, I don't even know the names of the players. The quarterback kid's good. He runs around a bit. It's fun.
Yeah.
They've got a nice defense.
That was going to be my follow-up question is, how about that game against Furman the week before?
Yeah, another thriller.
Exactly. Back-to-back overtime games.
This is a team of destiny. Jackrabbits are getting skinned this week. That's what's happening.
I do like the receiver for Montana that also returns punts and kickoffs.
Yeah.
That dude is good.
Number whatever he is, he's a little smaller guy. Bergen.
Something like
that? Yeah.
Bergen, because those are the bad guys in the Trolls movies.
Oh, didn't know. Okay.
Isn't that aren't they the Bergen?
I have no idea. I don't know anything about the Troll universe.
It might be close. It might not be, but that's where my mind goes for whatever reason.
Well, right. You can convince me of it for sure. I believe you.
My better at life this week is for our general manager, John Schneider, head coach Pete Carroll. I think we've finally seen the end of Russell Wilson in a Denver uniform, and probably the best for Russ. And also, it turns out to be the best for our Seahawks organization. Sure, some trades, they haven't worked out, like trading for Jamal Adams, but this deal that we got over on the Denver freaking Broncos and all of the draft capital that we got out of that, shoot, I think we're still waiting to see what third round pick position we end up getting because of the Broncos, because of partly because of how we fleeced the Broncos in the past. But things haven't worked out for Jamal. Sheldon Richardson, that trade didn't work out. Percy Harvin, that trade didn't work out. But we got the best of the Denver Broncos in the Russell Wilson trade. And for that, John Schneider, Pete Carroll, better at life than Skip Bayless.
100% right, 0% wrong. Crazy trade proposal, Brandon. Jamal Adams to the Broncos for Russell Wilson. The Broncos pick up 3/4 of Russ's contract, and he comes and backs up Geno Smith.
You're definitely on this Russ to Seattle trade. Can we get like Justin Simmons instead? I don't know. How about the way the Broncos have proven to be trade partners? I say we just trade straight up Jamal Adams for Justin Simmons and call it good.
Okay. Yeah, they'll do it tomorrow.
I'm sure they
Thanks,
will.
other Peyton. Yeah.
Also, a big thanks to our $12 members of the flock and above. We like to make sure and thank them each and every month. Some months it comes later in the month than the others, but to close out our last show of the year, Adam, our last flagship show, what do you say we give thanks to our flockers?
Keith Ketover, a.k.a. Flocktimus Prime, University of Cybertron, Little Flockers, roll out.
DCH from Sparks, Nevada, the University of Montana Grizzlies.
Eric Trench, rooting for the Seahawks out of Renton, Washington, graduated from Eastern Washington University.
Jameson Holman from Murray, Utah, representing Mississippi State University. Hail State and go Hawks.
Gary Blum from Chappaqua, New York, and the University of Pennsylvania, your 2016 Pick'em League champion.
Ron Pepper, UNLV Runnin' Rebels, San Francisco, California.
This is Hawk Van Dyke from the beautiful city of London and the capital of the UK.
Lisa in Seattle.
Samuel Gelber, NoHo, California.
David Van Cleve, Camas, Washington, home of the Papermakers.
Leo Jose, Luleå, Sweden, from Luleå Eskimos and Renkomar in France.
Paul from San Diego.
Aaron Fisher, coming in from Henderson, Nevada, hopefully future resident of the PNW.
Chris Boucher, a.k.a. the biggest little flocker, South Central Louisiana State University, go Mud Dogs.
This is J.C. Schilling coming in all the way from Mackenbach, Germany with Hudson and Quinn saying,
Catfish!
And
go Hawks! Go Hawks! Go Hawks! Go Hawks!
Hey Seahawkers, my name is Garen Taylor. I live in one of the most beautiful places in the world, North Idaho. #OnTheRose. Go Hawks.
Kicking things off, you heard from DCH and Garen Taylor. Also a thanks to our executive producers, Becca Christensen, Brian Shaw, John DeSmartu, Jake Burdine, and Has No Clue. And continuing down the list of our members of the flock, we have Christina in Manassas, Virginia, Craig in Camas, Jeremiah in the Bronx, Sven in Berlin, Deutschland, Tim in Austin, Brandon in Huntersville, North Carolina, James in Beau Arts, Pepper in Greenville, South Carolina, Jonathan in Ridgefield, JC in Horsford, England, Brian in Berlin, Connecticut, Tracy in Kaneohe, Hawaii, Connie in Gothenburg, Sweden, Kevin in Surrey, BC, Marvin in Riverdale, Utah, Dean in the Greater Hockham, Jeffrey in Kansas City, John W. in New York, John C. in the Greater Hockham, Glenn in Ocoee, Florida, Brian in Omak, Patrick in Sacramento, Bryson in Eltopia, Jeremy in Federal Way, Dr. G in League City, Texas, Kevin in Great Glen, England, Josh in Candor, New York, Ken in Hutto, Texas, Mario in Seattle, Cora in Ditters, Deutschland, Anders in Viola, Denmark, Rafe in Beaverton, Oregon, Warren in Dundee, Oregon, Chris in Austin, Tim in Olympia, Amy in Squim, Jeff in Bainbridge Island, Richard in Killeen, Texas, Flopster in Round Rock, Texas, Marlon in the Greater Hockham, Joseph in Vancouver, Corey in Ridgefield, Dan in the Greater Hockham, Norma in the Greater Hockham, Ryan in Salt Lake City, Kyle in the Greater Hockham, Alexander in Oranienburg, Deutschland, Jamie in Oswestry, England, DJ in Menifee, California, Joshua in the Greater Hockham, BB in Oakland, Eugene in Henderson, Nevada, Terrence in Dallas, Spooty Poo in Olympia, Jason in Panama City, Florida, Kayla in Vancouver, Tanner in Kalispell, Montana, Jeff in Gilbert, Arizona, Ryan in Crestview, Florida, Gordon in Valdez, Alaska, Bridget in Redmond, Ryan in Fairbanks, Alaska, Sean in Cascade, Iowa via Kalispell, Montana, Jason in Portland, Daniel C. in the Greater Hockham, Daniel in Swindon, England, Oliver in Fort St. John, BC, Eric in Kalispell, Montana, Ian in Seattle, B-Walls 22 in New York, Ovary Smasher 69 in Phoenix, Jay in Fairbanks, Alaska, Russell in Harpenden, England, Sam in Alamonte Springs, Florida, Corey in Robertson, Australia, Chris in Manchester, England, Logan in Evansville, Indiana, Charles in Spokane, Nathan in Fife, Jonathan in Newmarket, England, Ranger Luke in Olathe, Kansas, Ken in Stanwood, Mike in Kelowna, BC, Edward in the Greater Hockham, Stu in Navarre, Florida, Matt in Sultan, RJ in Bucyrus, Kansas, The Poetrist in Boise, Marty in Melbourne, Australia, Kelsey in Olympia, Gareth in Chester, England, Greg in Lake City, Colorado, Chris in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Randy in Silverton, Oregon, John in Waco, Nebraska, Martin in Ferrum, Denmark, and Daniel in Oakville, Australia. A big thanks. And yes, here it is. The last show, Adam. The last show of 2023 for you and me.
Yeah, it is. And the Seahawks are going to give us a special treat on New Year's Eve. I have no doubt about it. With the victory over the Steelers. And we will ring in the new year with an 88% chance of going to the playoffs in Week 18.
I'll take it. 88% chance is better than the percent chance they had when they started the season.
It is, and it's better than their percent chance just a couple of weeks ago.
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.